Join us today to learn from our dear friend Simone Gamble of OAARS. Simone works to create safer spaces for BIPOC communities with an intersectional, anti-oppressive lens. OAARS provides social justice-centered education and training to promote safer and inclusive workspaces with hopes of creating change agents in the workplace and beyond. Remember what sparked your passion for camp? UltraCamp knows it's about the people, not the paperwork. That's why they built a platform to simplify your camp management. Learn more at ultracampmanagement.com/campcode. Camp leaders, win back your time to what matters most, your campers. Bolin's comprehensive accounting, back office solutions, and tech-enabled team free up your staff to focus on your mission. Visit bolinhq.com, that's BOWLINEHQ.com, to learn more and book a free 2-hour financial diagnostic. Welcome to Camp Code, everybody, a podcast brought to you by GoCamp Pro. For us in the world of summer camp, there is nothing more important than well-researched, well-planned, well-thought-out, and well-prepared leadership training. It's at the crux of all we do. It's how we deliver a safe, exciting, kind, supportive, growth-filled experience for our campers and their families. And it's how we have our staff return year after year. It's how we make the biggest impact on the world around us. So join us today as we delve into the world of staff training, the good, the hard, and everything in between, because we're in it together. Welcome to our second last episode of the season. We're at the end of April here as we record, and camp is just around the corner. And today, we're absolutely thrilled to sit down with Simone Gamble, an incredible human being we have had the honor to work with over the years, both at conferences, including the Women in Camp Summit, and through GoCamp Pro. They are a brilliant person, and we can't wait to learn how we can create safer, braver, kinder spaces this summer in our camp programs. But before we dig in, we're just going to take a quick moment, as usual, to introduce ourselves. So, Gabrielle, could you go first, please?
Yes. Hello, everybody. My name is Gabs, and I'm one of the camp directors of Camp Waro. My pronouns are she, her, elle. And at Waro, we focus on creating a positive environment for girls and gender minorities. And we do that while speaking in French and English.
Thanks, Gab. And Simone, welcome. Could you introduce yourself, please?
Absolutely. I think you had the best introduction of OAARS that I need that blurred. Hello, everyone. My name is Simone Gamble. I use they and them pronouns, and I'm the founder of OAARS. We are a BIPOC consultancy of community organizers and activists, and we lead the EIJ trainings with many youth-serving organizations, but also out-of-school time programs, schools, nonprofits, and any space that is looking to create safer and equitable workplaces. And what we're highlighting today is our Kids Are Ready program that focuses on using play as a tool to talk about identity, justice, and giving young people the tools to become agents of change.
So now you see why we've invited them on the podcast.
Exactly.
And I'm Beth Allison. I'm a former camp director, executive director, and now a camp consultant. And then I'm co-owner of Camp Hacker and GoCamp Pro. My pronouns are she, her. And as always, my big passion is intentional leadership training. So I'm having those itchy feelings, those little spidey sense tingle things, because it's that time of year when everybody's getting ready for staff training. And this is when I tend to miss it most. So I am so excited for this conversation. I have been thinking about it since Simone and I were together at Tri-State. So let's dive in because we have lots of things we want to cover. So our first question for you, Simone, is what inspired you to create the Kids Are Ready program? Where'd that come from?
Absolutely. So just a little context, it was actually created by 4 of us. So there's a team of 4 called the Kids Are Ready team. It's myself, Adela Afendi, Elizabeth Ramirez, Thyra Akabawi, and also special mention to Shola Jones, who helps to facilitate the curriculum as well. So it's a team of us who helps to create this program. I was at the lead of it because of an amazing opportunity I got from the National Summer Learning Association, where I believe it was 2021, where I was awarded the National Summer Learning Association Fellowship, where they gave us grant money to kind of rework a program and making sure that it is intentional with equity and justice. And so I worked with my former camp home, which was Camp Fiverr, to revamp their character education program and infuse social justice into their curriculum. And so we created 12 pieces of a curriculum where young people were talking about identity, talking about character, but through a justice-based lens. And so that opportunity kind of catapulted me into this work based on their nomination and their belief in the work that I was doing. But then I was able to bring in all these other camp pros and people who had all these amazing technical skills to help craft what the curriculum looked like, making sure that we're including different intersectional, anti-oppressive viewpoints and perspectives in the curriculum. And so that opportunity was the best space and the most creative space for us to work with without having restrictions in capacity, funding, and staffing. But I want to go back a little further to where this seed was kind of planted at that same camp when I was a counselor, actually a character education specialist. We had this program called Whole Selves, in which young people would talk about different character attributes and we would play games where they would practice those skills. And so there was one activity where we were drawing our perfect community. What would it have? What would you draw in your perfect community? People put like stores and schools and libraries. And then there was a moment when it was middle school where they put a police station in the community. And in the same vein, people were sharing out what they had in their community. And another young person said, I don't want police in the community. And I was in my like mid-20s and I was like, wait, what? What do I do in this moment? How do I address this? And I was like, do I choose a side? Do I not? And then I just kind of paused and asked the young people why. Why do you want this community and why do you not? Instead of taking a stand, instead of getting on my high horse and saying what my personal beliefs are, it was an opportunity for young people to share their why. And they shared how for some, they felt safer, and for others, they felt more unsafe because they were targeted in their particular community. And from then, we had a whole conversation about what safety means, about how their identities impacted what safety meant. And that was just from drawing what their perfect community was. And so a seed had been planted in that moment to continuously think, how can we talk about justice and identity with young people, but also use play as a tool for that, because that helps them to bring their walls down. So that moment planted the seed for this. And then I was given the tools, the soil to grow that through NSLA and Camp Fiverr.
It is meant to be something so intentional and so important.
And so moving. And camp is, Beth and I often talk about how camp is like the spoonful of sugar that helps the medicine go down. We use play as a tool to build connections, to build resiliency, to build, all the things that we need and want our young individuals to be able to do outside in society in a positive way. Can you tell us about a moment where you realized play, like the actual play aspect of things, could be such a powerful tool for justice education?
Oh, absolutely. Outside of that moment, I just
Yeah.
think about, because we usually have conversations in schools or different spaces when it comes to diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice. It might be a lecture or we're reading something or an article. But then I realized through play, people are allowed to kind of bring their walls down because these terms and talking about justice brings up so much in our bodies. And if there's any way that we can kind of embody calm when we're talking about these issues, embody connection when we're talking about these issues, that's when it becomes a powerful tool. If we're on guard and we're defensive, learning cannot happen in that space. And so there are several moments that I think about where I knew that it was working. I'm trying to think of a specific example. One that comes to mind was actually recently. I was working with the Inwood Public Library, and we have a game called, another community game was called The Perfect Community. But instead of drawing it, they had to do a process of elimination where they would start with, what are 10 things you want in your perfect community? And then each round, they would have to release. They didn't know this until they ended up with one. And then in the end, they had to come together and pick what was the one thing they wanted in their perfect community. And in that process, they realized that identity and power came up all the time because there were the young people who were the oldest in the group who took up space, or the person who spoke a specific language, who spoke English as their first language, had a little bit more power. And then there we saw some of the young women kind of taking a step back, not because they wanted to, but because some of the young boys were taking up more space because how they were socialized around power. And then I just let them do it. I just let them play, and I became an observer. So a lot of times the adults are observers during the play, so you can ask those deep questions later. And then after they finally got to that one, and I can just tell at the end that people were not satisfied. They just chose
Yeah.
to get over with that piece of the game. And then afterwards, I said, "So how did that feel? How did that feel? How do you think identity came up in that in this activity of just choosing our number one?" And the person who actually took up the most space said, "I think we did a great job. I think we got."
I
And I
love
was
it.
like, "You shared. I'm sure you thought that." And then I said, "Do you think everyone had a say?" And I think he realized, he was like, "Actually, no, I didn't really hear from everyone's voice." And I think I spoke a lot because I just wanted to get it done. And then we just had a whole conversation around
Mm.
his different identities that held privilege that may have silenced another. And then some of the people who didn't speak talked about how, yeah, I feel like I didn't want to sound a certain way. I didn't want to get it wrong. And we just talked about that. Where do you get these messages from? And that was
Oh,
all just from a game of picking your perfect community. And we have a bunch more just like that.
I
it's
love it. And I think
wonderful.
Gab is busy taking notes. I can
I'm
see.
literally writing. Yeah, it's wonderful, and it's the power of experiential learning paired with conversation debrief. However you want to do that. And what I love is that you gave them the space to do the thing, and then came in at the end. That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing.
Yes. I do want to add, though, there are some games where the adult facilitator is very intrusive.
Right.
But it's for a reason. So there is another game called the Game of Life, where young people have to there's these squares set up where they have to go across the path to get from point A to point B.
Mm.
And the facilitator has the path. This is a common camp game. But we infuse social justice in this way where we would give specific young people a cheat code where they would get the code to come across the path. And then they would get an opportunity to bring others along the path. And each time, those young people would choose exactly the people who look just like them, not the people who were
Interesting.
struggling in
Yep.
the cheat code. And then we talked about that. And I was like, why was it easy for you to get across? They were like, because you gave me the code. And I was like, did you do anything to earn it? And they said, no. And I said, what does that reflect? And then we talked about power and privilege. And then I said, why didn't you help your friends across once you got across? And they were like, I don't know. I just thought about myself. And it's just so honest and answers that you won't get when you're just talking about it in a lecture or just a regular group discussion. So they're embodying what it looks like to be an agent of change or to be an embodiment of what oppression looks like. And I think that is sometimes even more important because you recognize, oh, it's in me too. And how do I unlearn that now?
I love that. That's great. And kids have so much to say. And
Oh,
Yeah.
oftentimes we think they don't get it or having these discussions they're not ready for. But they are. I mean, obviously age appropriate, but they're ready for these kinds of discussions.
they
Okay,
are.
so when I ran into you happily at Tri-State,
Mhm.
you were in the exhibit hall and you had a justice journal that I was really excited to talk about. So what's the story behind that? How did that come to life?
Absolutely. So the TKAR, the Kids Are Ready team, actually developed that as a tool to complement the work that we were doing in the Kids Are Ready program. So a part of the fellowship, we got the funds to create this something called the Justice Journal. So the Kids Are Ready curriculum is very play-based, it's very active, but at some points we will only meet with the young people for like 45 minutes or for an hour a day at that particular time. And so we thought like the learning has to extend beyond just
Mhm.
the classroom or just the the space that we were working in. And so we created this justice journal for them to process this journey on their own. What does it mean to become an agent of change? What does it mean to start to learn about myself and go through the flow of where we start with self-awareness to taking action? So the justice journal is broken up into 4 pieces. We start with self-awareness, where they learn about what does social identity mean. Then we start with self-reflection. Now that I know my identity, how am I navigating the world? What does that mean? Who inspires me? And then we go into taking action. So now that I understand my identity, I understand the world around me. how do I take action? What are the things that I can do as a young person now, not as an adult, which we sometimes focus on? What can I do now to make sure that I'm creating safer and braver spaces around me, whether it's my classroom, my community, my playground, etc. And then allyship. How do you be an ethical ally? Because sometimes people can think they're doing allyship, but might be causing more harm. So they go at the flow of thinking about self, reflecting on self, taking action, and then reflecting on how to make sure that they're not causing harm when they're becoming allies to marginalized people. So it has drawing prompts, it has questions, it has a social identity wheel, it has quotes from middle school students that we sourced from a teacher named Yasha Morgan, I think his fifth or sixth grade class, who came up with the quotes. We have youth activists between 10 and 25 years old, because they're also part of youth, to help come up with their quotes and their journeys. So there's like learning, but it's also playful and interactive and kid-like.
I love that. I was really excited to see it. Excuse me. And I hope that a lot of people are going to be using that this summer. Okay. This is just the start of the tip of the iceberg, everybody. So we're going to take a quick break to hear from our sponsor, and then we will be right back. A special offer from UltraCamp for Camp Code listeners. Get ready for next season's staff recruiting with the Camp Experience Wheel, a powerful tool to prevent burnout, boost retention, and make sure your staff feels supported. Download it for free at ultracampmanagement.com/campcode. Tired of juggling multiple systems? UltraCamp offers a platform that simplifies your work by combining all aspects of camp management into one seamless solution. UltraCamp brings everything you need into one easy-to-use platform. Plan schedules and activities with just a few clicks. Easily organize, schedule, and automate your communications. Register and track campers easily. Manage payments and donations seamlessly. Get back to what you love. UltraCamp helps you spend less time on admin tasks and more time creating unforgettable camp experiences. Ready to see if UltraCamp is the perfect fit? Schedule your free, personalized demo at ultracampmanagement.com/campcode. Camp leaders, do you often find yourself bogged down with bookkeeping, accounting, and other back office tasks, taking precious time away from what matters most, your campers? Imagine a solution that frees up your staff to focus on creating impactful and memorable experiences for your campers. That's where Bolin comes in. Bolin offers comprehensive accounting back office solutions designed specifically for camps. Our tech-enabled team handles everything from payroll and bookkeeping to financial reporting, compliance, expense management, spend control, and more, allowing your staff to passionately pursue your number one purpose. With Bolin, you can streamline your camp's financial operations, reduce stress, and ensure your team is free to make a lasting impact in campers' lives. It's time to win back your time and work with a financial partner that truly understands camps. Whether you're a for-profit, not-for-profit, overnight, or day camp, Bolin has a solution for you. Visit bolinhq.com, that's BOWLINEHQ.com, to learn more and book a free 2-hour financial diagnostic. The report is yours whether you sign up or not. Let Bolin take care of your accounting needs so you can focus on what truly matters, your campers. All right, we are back. Gabs, do you have another question that you would like to ask?
Beth, I have about 58 other questions, but Simone, I won't overwhelm you with them. I'm a little bit of a visual learner, and my mind is going all over the place with what you're doing. What does a typical session of the kids are ready look like? First of all, I love also that title, The Kids Are Ready. Of course they are. But what does a typical session look like if I was just peeking in?
Absolutely. So we usually have like limited time, so we try to make the best of it, but we have to do some like core things in order for it to qualify as a Kids Are Ready program. So the first thing we do, of course, is like introductions and welcome. We do like a grounding activity. A lot of times when young people are coming into spaces, sometimes they go straight into activity and learning, but we are very intentional with our grounding. We make sure that young people are feeling good, are ready to learn and ready to play. So we do a check-in question, or we do a check-in game where they can kind of connect with each other, especially if it's a new group. And then The second piece is making sure that we have what is the concept that we want them to learn then? Is it allyship? Is it thinking about taking collective action? Is it talking about power and privilege? Once we have that, we have a specific game that young people play between 30 and 40 minutes where they're thinking about the concepts, embodying the concept, acting it out. And then we end with reflection. How did that game feel? How did we show up in that game? What concepts came up in that game? And that is where like the real learning happens. So they have experiential learning with play, and then we discuss. The debrief is actually some of the most important pieces because that is where they're making the connection to what happened in the game. The aha moments of what they realize that it's not just a game and that it reflects real life is so fun to me every single time. They're like, wait, that happens in real life. I thought that was cool. I'm like, really? Yeah, reflection. And then
You're like, no kidding.
and they're like, we know what you're doing. So I love moments. And then after that, the part we really want to get to is like, how do we share this learning? Now, what action do we do after we reflect? Depending on time, we usually get that at the end of the session or at the beginning of the next one. It's like, do I want to sign a petition? Do I want to learn more? Do I want to create a presentation about environmental justice that I just learned in this workshop? And so that's kind of the flow. So grounding, embodied play, debrief, and then like some form of action at the end.
I love that. It's like you were intentional and thought it all through. How strange.
Right. Exactly.
Okay, so you already touched on this a bit already, but how do campers actually engage with the Justice Journal? Like, do you send them away to do it on their own? Do you sometimes do it when you're all together? How does that sort of work?
Yes, to be honest, we haven't found like the perfect flow for that because camp is it's happening at all times and we can't be everywhere. So different iterations of it happen. So there are some times where we bring the Justice Journal intentionally into the session and we work with it. For example, there's a social identity wheel. And so we have questions that we say refer to page 16 at the identity wheel. Which ones do you identify with? And then we use it as a tool in the program. The second way that people have used it is that they bring it into their cabins as a kind of a social emotional learning or bonding where they're doing the coloring together or they're answering prompts together in the cabins or at the lunch table. And then my favorite way is just seeing young people in the middle of camp somewhere, just using it on their own and answering the questions or going up to one of their favorite counselors or staff members and saying like, hey, can you help me explain what this word means? Or can I show you my answers to this question? That is my favorite moment when I would walk around camp and young people would come up to me and be like, do you want to read my answer to Tom and Ally? Like that is some of the best thing when they take that initiative to work on it on their own. But I would say there's some language that might be hard. We try to make it as kid friendly as possible and scaffold that. But we love when adults work with young people with the journals and include it as an intentional space within their camp programs. If not, it just becomes a book. We need to bring it alive as adult facilitators.
And it sounds like it gives these kids such a sense of not just self, but pride as well. You know, like I love that. I love that.
Absolutely. When they talk about their identities, that's one of the questions is like, what do you love most about yourself? Or what have you learned that the world says not to like, but you do like? Just seeing those answers it's not just about identifying with the oppression. It's like, what are you proud of? What do you want to share with the world, a part of your culture that's important to you? So it's not just thinking about the oppression, but also the pride in our identity and how we have showed up, especially as young people. Thank you for pointing that out.
These are such beautiful questions too. The reframing. And I remember my CIT coordinator. So this was 30 years ago. I remember my CIT coordinator asking us to draw a column down the page. And on one side, was what are some things that I want to work on myself? And the other side was what are some things that I like about myself? And I remember the second column of what I like about myself, pretty much almost anybody in the group, that was the much shorter column. And just that the activity wasn't about looking at the two columns. It was looking at why do we have a hard time filling out that second one? And, this is an activity that stuck with me for so many years about our self-talk and what society tells us. And I think, what you're doing is bringing it to allow a space for kids to have this type of reflection, but also you're right. The journals need adults to help bring it alive. And, at the end of the summer, I always go out to lunch with one of my old camp friends and we talk about the kids and how hilarious and what are some of the funny things that they did. Is there a, an aha moment that you've seen from young people participating? You shared a couple, but I'm wondering if sometimes those growth moments happen after the program and we don't always get to see it, but do you have any that you remember that you're like, oh, that kid got it and I was present for it?
Absolutely. That's a good question. I'm trying to think of one. I think one aha moment that I could think of was actually one where it kind of got emotional during the games. And I think one piece that I want to preference for folks when they start this work is that it is fun in games, but it does bring up a lot. Like, because some of these games are people's lived experiences and identities. So one moment in particular, I was working with the camp and we were talking about gender identity, which is a really hot topic at the moment. And we were just talking about what it felt like to be if we were non-binary. I introduced that I was non-binary as well. And then there was one young person who spoke up and said that they don't feel safe in this moment because they are a trans young person and that they didn't feel safe in this moment and they were scared. And then they were emotional. They started to cry in front of the group. And I just remember the silence after that. And in my head, I was just once again trying to think about how to fix it or what to say to make it right. There's nothing I could have said that could have made it right, per se. I'm doing quotation marks. But then the young people just talked to the person and was like, you belong here, you're okay, we love you. Like, it was beautiful. And then I just stayed after with them and I just sat. And I was like, thank you for your vulnerability. Thank you for sharing. How can I support you in this moment? And they just talked about their experience, what it was like going to school or what it was like going home or not being able to know where they can use their pronouns. And I shared about my own experience. So offering that aftercare is super important as well. And then when I asked for testimonials after, they were the one person who reached out and was like, I love this program. And it helped me to understand myself and connect with other people in my camp who I didn't even know shared some of my similar experiences. So the one person who I thought would be so wishing this program didn't exist was the one person who was like, I was grateful for that moment, even though. So that's my aha moment, that it may be hard, but I think young people need these spaces.
And what an incredibly rewarding moment for you too, to know that all the work that you funneled into this program has touched the lives of people who really needed to hear it and experience it. So that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that story. All right. So all the things you've said already, why wouldn't everybody want to do this?
Yeah.
So if a camp wants to bring this program in, where should they start?
That's a good question. Yeah, I think I want everyone to have it, but I want it to be done mindfully. So,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah.
It has to be.
Yeah,
It goes back to the ethical allyship that you were talking about earlier.
Yes.
Like, we got to take proper steps. So yeah, sorry, continue. I just agree.
So you can continue on that vein because it's all about harm reduction. We want to create agents of change, but we also don't want to cause harm in the process because it does bring up a lot. So a couple of ways that you can engage with the kids already. One, if you want to start small, you can purchase the Justice Journal, and that could be a way for you to start the conversation or plant the seed with young people instead of bringing it in full stop. So those are for sale at the moment. You can also hire one of our consultants or a pair of our consultants to come in to lead the Kids Already program. So I have done a couple with maybe 3 or 4 camps where I come in and lead every single day. I stay on camp. I work with the young people. I bring the journals, all the supplies. And so you can hire the Kids Already team to come teach a program as well, whether it's at camp or even year round. We've done a lot of fall programming as well. We also are developing our Train the Trainer program, which is probably my favorite because we're only a couple people. So we want to be able to expand this. So we do Train the Trainer program where we give you the material and the tools to bring this to your camp yourself. And your campers trust you most. And so it would make sense if you did it as well. And so we do like a week or 2 week, however long training for you to learn how to implement the Kids Are Ready program. And then, yeah, I believe those are the main ways for us to do that. And our hope is one day that the kids can actually lead the program themselves.
Yes,
That's the
100%.
real Kids Are Ready.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. Amazing. And I love that there's so much support from you folks on how to do this, because for some of it's a scary concept to think, oh, how are we going to do this and do this well? So knowing there's all that support there is really important. And I think that gives us the confidence to be able to do what we need to do.
Absolutely.
You got another question, Gab? One more before we recap?
Well, I'm trying to, we've talked so much about the kids and their lessons. I was hoping if we could just continue with the trainer program. For me, I think this is something that in the amount of camps that Beth and I talked to, I would say the work that you're doing is what so many camps do want to do, but just don't know how to do. And there is I think an anxiety of doing it wrong, and because of harm and harm reduction. But sometimes there's also you have to learn, and we do need to take the steps to do this very, very important work. If there was somebody that was interested in the trainer program, what could they expect from you when it comes to, if I was a camp director and I said, oh, I think I have the perfect person at my camp. What kind of people are you looking for? Because obviously we want to send you people that you feel inspired to work with as well. So, how can we help camp directors to take that step?
I love this question. I think the people who would be best for the trainer program, of course, I want everyone, but
Yeah.
the people who would thrive the most are the people who are going to be very self-reflective. I think the biggest piece of the work is facilitator. We're not the most important, but we're the biggest piece because we lead those conversations and make those connections as well. So we need someone who's willing to look at their own social identity, at their own proximity to power, at their own biases about what young people are ready for or not, and be able to unlearn some of those beliefs. If you can become so self-aware about how you show up as a person in XYZ identity, you are going to do great with this program because you're going to have to release power and allow young people to challenge you and say, hey, that's wrong. You're going to have to believe in the capacity of young people to know something more than you or have an answer that's different and may not be what you expected. You're going to have to be okay with conflict. You're going to have to be okay with your identity being a trigger for some folks too, and recognizing how do I make sure I'm causing a reduction in harm and being mindful of those identities. Those are the people who are going to thrive the most in a train the trainer program. We start with thinking about the facilitator and how do you unlearn a lot of these systems of oppression in order to be a better facilitator in this space. So if you're ready for that, then definitely sign up.
Yes. And Camp Pros, if you're ready to, lean into that and support somebody from your organization as well as yourself, that's what's going to help with the success, supporting that person or a couple of people from your organization. I think this is a brilliant program. And I think it's what a lot of camps want and need. And you've just helped create a toolkit that comes with so much intentionality. And Beth and I, that doesn't go over our heads. We feel it and see it. Thank you so much for that work.
All right. I guess we're ready for your recap, Gab, your famous recap.
Recap. Everybody listen up, okay? I'm talking to the 1911 camps, we were blah, blah, blah. It's been 150 years that we have been around, blah, blah, blah. Your camp has changed. Your camp has changed every single year. Guess what? You have light bulbs, change. Flushing toilets, change. Your boats, some of them are now fiberglass, change. And why do we change? Because change is important. Because honestly, the goal with camps is just to make things a little bit better, bit by bit. We're not asking for pendulum swings. We're not asking for grand gestures. What we're doing and asking for is what we do best, which is trying to build a community that cares for each other. And what Simone and their team are doing is exactly that. Some of us don't have this knowledge. Some of us grew up with a lot of privilege. and are learning about what that means. And some of us want to do different, but we're a little bit scared. Yeah, and we don't want to say the wrong thing. And we're a little, da. But Simone's there to help us out. We got into this, some of us, not for the money. Some of us got into this to make lives a better, place. Camp is a better place. But camp is not the place to hide out and be protected. Camp is a place where we take chances and risks so we learn how to do better so we can do better outside of camp. And I am so inspired by the work that OAARS is doing and Simone is doing. And truthfully, the real recap is reaching out to them. Just take that leap of faith and get somebody on your team and get them to be trained and just help your camp get closer to the goal, which is creating a kinder space within your camp, helping kids feel like they belong to something special. We do it. We just need, to do it a little bit more.
That was one of your best recaps ever, Gab. And it wasn't even really a recap. It was wonderful.
It wasn't a recap. Wonderful. Simone has all the information, y'all.
I love the recap. Just ask them.
There you go.
All right. So we are wrapping up season 12, but you can certainly let us know any guests you'd like us to have in season 13 or any topics you would like us to discuss or any great leadership training tips that you have to share. We would love to hear from you because we are all about sharing in this industry. And if you have found our podcast useful, we'd love it if you'd leave us a rating in your podcasting app. So if you'd like to, first of all, you can certainly contact Gab and me, but I think the more important person here is Simone.
Yes.
Simone, if they wanted to get more information or to connect with you, where would they find you?
Absolutely. You can email me directly, simone@oars.com. So that's SIMONE at OAAARS. Remember, it is 3 A's.com. You can also find us on LinkedIn, Simone-Gamble, Gamble, Gamble on LinkedIn. Our website is www.oars.com. And also Instagram is @OAARS. But you can find us on every social media platform outside on Twitter or X and Facebook.
Perfect. And I'm sure you're going to get a lot of responses. All right, Gab, where can they reach you?
They can check out where I work at ouareau.com, OUAREAU.com, all of the vowels, or they can contact me at info@ouareau.com.
Thank you. You can email me directly at beth@gocamp.pro or check out our website, gocamp.pro. Our final segment on each podcast is always a best practice for leadership training. And again, let us know any you'd like us to share. But this week's one, shockingly, is going to come from Simone. So Simone, what's your best practice for us?
Yes. First of all, I also want to congratulate y'all on 12 seasons. That's phenomenal.
Yep.
Great. I would say, I think the biggest thing that comes up for folks is getting it wrong and what the advice is around that. And I think getting it wrong is actually a part of the work.
Yeah.
The reason why the kids already started in the first place is because I thought I would say something that get it wrong and ruin young people's lives, but it actually became the catalyst to build something like this. And so I think there will be moments where you don't say the right thing or you don't do anything perfect. But young people are not looking for perfection. They're looking for someone who's willing to try. They're looking for someone who's willing to admit mistakes and improve from there. People to be self-reflective and also center their voices. So I say the only way to get it wrong is to do nothing at all. And we are literally in a space where we need to have our young people have a safe space to discuss what's happening in the world. So much is happening right now. And if we don't choose somewhere to do that and to have these conversations that have once been taboo but should be normalized now, I don't know when we will start. And let's do it before we literally cannot. So I think there's no way to get it wrong besides doing nothing. And with that, I say thank you for this platform.
We are so grateful to you. We thank you for joining us. It was an honor to have you with us and to have you share your information. It's such incredibly important work. And so we hope you all take advantage of Simone's brilliance and their organization's help. And let's get out there and help turn this around so our kids, our teens, our families all feel like we are all connected in a larger community and that we all feel welcome and valued. Camp Code is part of the Go Camp Pro podcast network, and you can check out all of our other podcasts at gocamp.pro/podcasts. And thanks to all of you who are listening in our 142 countries as we work to give our campers, our staff, and our families the best experience possible. Thanks for the listening, friends.